Have you ever wondered why Easter is the only major holiday that moves every year? I've been to over 40 Easter services, and for most of my life, I've had no answer to this question. You see, in Western culture, most holidays either have a fixed date, like December 25th, or they follow a specific pattern, like the fourth Thursday in November. But Easter can fall anywhere between March 22nd and April 25th. That's a 34-day spread. So to help understand when Easter is, today we're going to look at the who, the what, the why, and the how behind it all. First, let's talk about why Easter moves every year. To see why it's like the annual egg hunt, always hiding on a different spot in the calendar, we need to peek at its origin story. And that starts with the Jewish feast of Passover. According to the Gospels, Jesus was crucified right around Passover and rose 3 days later, still smack in the middle of that big Jewish festival week. You see, Passover was and still is huge. It celebrates the Israelites' epic escape from Egypt. So the earliest Christians, mostly Jewish folk themselves, naturally linked Jesus' death and resurrection to Passover. They were basically glued together. But calendars love to cause drama. You see, Passover follows the Jewish lunisolar calendar, which mainly tracks the moon's lunar rhythms instead of the sun. A lunar month is roughly 29 and a half days, so a lunar year is about 11 days shorter than our solar one. To stop Passover from sliding into winter, they sneak in an extra month every so often. 7 times every 19 years to realign. Think of it as a really long leap day. Because of that shift, Passover ends up hopping around the calendar, anywhere from late March to late April. And since Easter was linked to Passover, it hopped right along for the ride. Now, in the early church, the debate over the date of Easter got messy and pretty fast. So who was fighting over this Easter date drama? Well, 2 main camps squared off, and it turned into a real family feud. Our first team is the Quartodecimans, which is a fancy term for Team 14. These folks, mostly in Asia Minor, now modern-day Turkey, stuck to celebrating on the exact date of Passover, the 14th of Nisan. No matter if it landed on a Tuesday, a Thursday, whenever. And they proudly said that this tradition came directly from the Apostle John himself. But our second team is the Sunday or bust crew. They were centered in big hubs like Rome and Alexandria, and they said the resurrection happened on a Sunday, so Easter had to be a Sunday. End of discussion, or so they thought. They were also trying to establish a distinct Christian identity separate from the Jewish faith. The whole thing boiled over around 190 AD when Victor, the Bishop of Rome, basically threatened to excommunicate the entire Asian church. He said, you need to agree with us or you are out of the club. It was one of the first big sidewalk cracks in what was supposed to be one big happy Christian family. But guess what? They still hadn't sorted it out. The argument just kept simmering until later councils turned down the heat. So what did they actually decide? Well, fast forward to 325 AD, Emperor Constantine calls the biggest church meeting yet, the Council of Nicaea. Now, it's often stated that Nicaea settled the Easter date once and for all, but that's not quite the whole story. Easter's date was part of the agenda, and the council did settle the core argument. The Quartodeciman position, or Team 14, was officially out. Nicaea did decide that Easter would be celebrated on a Sunday, it would be the same Sunday everywhere, and it would be calculated independently of the Jewish calendar. But here's what Nicaea did not do. Nicaea did not produce a formula. There was no calculation, no tables. They gave the order, but they didn't provide the instructions. Now, the actual technical work of figuring out that exact Sunday, they largely handed that responsibility off to Alexandria, home to the best astronomers in the Roman Empire. They essentially said, figure it out. Different regions were still using different formulas well into the 500s. It took 200 years from Nicaea to finally pave a consistent path to Easter Sunday. So how does that calculation actually work? Despite centuries of debate, the formula that the church landed on has just 3 components. First, you need a specific equinox, a fixed point in the calendar year. From there, you're looking for a full moon, though as we'll see, full moon here means something slightly different than what you'll find in the weather app. And finally, it's the first Sunday after both of those things. 3 steps. It sounds easy, but in practice, it's a little more complicated. Let's take them one at a time. The first component is the equinox, specifically the spring equinox. This is the point in the year when the northern hemisphere starts tilting back to the sun. And for the Eastern calculation, that date is March 21st. Every year, fixed, permanent, non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what the sun is actually doing. March 21st is the center point for the whole calculation. This is called the ecclesiastical equinox. And ecclesiastical just means defined by the church. Here's the catch though. The real astronomical equinox doesn't work that way at all. The actual equinox isn't a day, it's a moment. A precise instant when the sun crosses the celestial equator. And that moment shifts around on the calendar for the same reason that we need leap years. The solar year isn't a clean 365 days, so the equinox drifts slightly earlier each year until a leap day nudges it back. On top of that, since it's a single moment in time, it can actually fall on different days depending on what time zone you're in. So you can see why the church opted for a fixed date instead. In most years, the gap between the two doesn't really matter, but occasionally it's what pushes Easter a full week in one direction or another. Once we have our March 21st anchor point, the next hunt is finding the first full moon on or after the ecclesiastical equinox. But again, just like with the equinox, the church doesn't use the real full moon. Instead, there is a pre-calculated table of dates called the Paschal full moon. Paschal being an old world rooted in Passover and broadly used to mean Easter related. That table assigns a fixed full moon date to every year in a repeating 19-year cycle and has done so every year since the early church mathematicians worked it out centuries ago. Your Easter calculation uses that date, period, regardless of what the moon is actually doing. But the real moon, it's a lot less predictable. The actual astronomical full moon, like the equinox, is a precise moment in time. The result is that the Paschal full moon and the actual full moon can sometimes fall a day or two and occasionally several apart, which again can move the date of Easter around. Now, the third component is the simplest. And as you can see here, there's only one option. Easter must fall on a Sunday. This one goes all the way back to the core of the quarter-decimal argument. Sunday was non-negotiable because Sunday was the day of the resurrection. For them, that was the whole reason they were doing this in the first place. So once you have your Paschal full moon, you simply find the next Sunday, and that's it. That's Easter. And that is the complete formula. Ecclesiastical equinox, March 21st, first Paschal moon on or after the equinox, and the first Sunday after the moon. They can't be the same day. 3 steps locked in every year. If you are enjoying this video, then please give it a like. And if you like holiday-based content year-round, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So let's see this formula in action, starting with the extremes. First up, the earliest Easter possible, March 22nd. The last time it actually happened was in 1818. The ecclesiastical equinox and Paschal full moon were both on the same day, March 21st, making the very next day Easter Sunday. This won't happen again until 2285. So nobody watching this will ever see it. Now let's flip to the other end of the spectrum. The latest possible Easter is April 25th. The next one coming up is in 2038. The Paschal full moon will fall on April 18th, which is a Sunday, so Easter jumps forward a full week to April 25th. That Sunday rule doing exactly what we said it would earlier. And then there's this year, 2026. As always, the ecclesiastical equinox is March 21st, and the Paschal full moon is April 2nd. The first Sunday after that, April 5th. The same 3 steps every year. It's just the calendar gives us several different options. Clean, simple, no edge cases. So after all of the calculations and the drama, where does that leave us? After many centuries of debate, mathematics, and reform, Easter still moves, and it probably always will. Interestingly, the Eastern Orthodox Church still figures the date using the original Julian calendars, which means their Eastern and Western Easter can fall anywhere from the same day to 5 full weeks apart. Still not fully agreeing. And while there have been some serious proposals in the last century to fix Easter to a specific Sunday, the World Council of Churches came close in the 1990s, but it never quite got there. And maybe there's something right about that. Perhaps a holiday centered on the most world-changing event in history was never meant to sit still on a calendar. Now, here's another video that YouTube thinks you'll like. I think they're right. You're gonna like it.